Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the second episode of So Talk. Today's special guest is a good friend of mine. Her name is Beth Glass. We met this year for the very first time when she did a quilt retreat here at Ryan's. That went extremely well. So everybody help me in welcoming Beth Glass. Good morning, Beth. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you. And you?
I'm doing absolutely wonderful. I really wanted to take this chance to start by getting to know a little bit more about you, your story, how you got started, and then kind of where you've grown to.
All right. So, where would you like to begin? At the very beginning?
At the very beginning.
Okay. I actually did some sewing with my mother. Hated it when I was in junior high school, and then kind of got doing it again and grew to like it more. So my mom and I took our first quilt class together in 1976.
Wow.
She quit, I kept going and still going.
Uh-huh. Well, very cool. So how old were you when you kind of got back into it? And then how long have you been doing it now?
I think I was in my early 20s, so
Oh,
I'm getting
wow.
close to probably 50 years,
Oh, my
maybe.
goodness.
Yes,
Yeah,
it's been a while.
that is a lot of experience there. And then you started a couple of your own businesses, whether it's educating or doing retreats. If you could just kind of let us know how you got started in that and how those have done for you.
Sure. Well, first of all, I was a sixth grade teacher for 33 years, and I always had
Wow.
sewing machines in my classroom. The kids love sewing. And then when I moved here to New Mexico, I met my business partner, Ruth, at a charity sewing, and she'd never been to a quilt retreat. So we
Wow.
decided, let's start one because there really weren't any here in town or really around. And so we've been in business for 12 years, been doing that. We've been doing a lot of little local things as well, like at Ryan's. And let's see, we're going to actually close our business at the end of this year, the Over the Mountain Quilt Retreats. And that is because she is moving and I am just getting a little bit older and hauling stuff. So we're hoping to continue the day retreats at Ryan's. And I think that went well this last June. I also teach classes, quilting classes, and which I am now starting to retire from that. And I have a long arm business, which I've been doing for probably 12 years or so. And that, as my husband says, it keeps me off the street.
So,
So,
so, so you are thinking of kind of retiring from the quilting education side of things?
pretty much, I think. Honestly, with the three things going, I just haven't had time to do anything that I would like to do. It's hard for me to keep up with my own sewing, and I
Yeah.
plan to do more embroidery.
Oh, very cool. Well, what type of embroidery machine do you use, as well as what type of long arm machine?
I have a luminaire, which I absolutely love. And so I use that pretty much daily. And yeah, I can't say enough about a luminaire.
And then what about for the long arm side?
The long arm, I have an APQS, which I purchased before I knew about Ryan's.
I know if you would have known about us, you would definitely be in an Innova right now.
I probably would.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, very cool. Like you said, you guys are going to be retiring from your quilt retreats that you guys had started 12 years ago. Congrats on that, by the way.
Thank you.
I know this past year you did do your first retreat at Ryan's. And that was my first one that I've been a part of. I was really unsure, what it was all about. And then after seeing not only how many people signed up, but how much they all loved you guys and how involved they were and how they want to keep this thing going. So as you said, with your business partner moving away, we are going to try to keep something going, these day retreats where you come into Ryan's and hopefully every time it'll get bigger and get better. What do you kind of envision in the future what a day retreat for Ryan's could look like?
Well, the thing about our retreats, whether it be day or multiple days or several days, a lot of the ladies that when we first started, they wanted UFO, unfinished projects, because everybody's got 20 things to do. So I think we'll probably keep it as that, and not, I mean, there's always help available should someone need it. I think with the day retreats at Ryan's, the thing that they really like the best is they don't have to take their machine home at night. We can just lock the door up, come back the next morning. And it's pretty much uninterrupted sewing for them. And secondly, they love it because they can go into the store and get anything that they need, or maybe they don't need but want.
Yeah. And we do, help out by providing them a good little discount on different items,
Yeah,
and store discounts on fabrics, just to keep them going. But it's nice to have us there. I know a couple of the ladies had some issues with their machines. We went right in and we helped them out immediately, right? And that's
right.
kind of what's so good about our partnership is everybody wants to join that day retreat because they want to learn from you and they want to be around you. It's also nice to have that backup support when maybe other retreats you might not have support or supply availability like that, right?
Absolutely. And I know two ladies that walked out with a new machine that day too.
Yeah, and well, not only did they walk out with a new machine, but it was the same machine that you like to take to your quilt retreats, which is that Brother BQ 1350, which is,
Yes,
part of that quilt club series. But those luminaires, like you said, that's a really big machine, 13-inch throat, almost 40 pounds. So having a little travel machine like that, but is still more than capable of getting the job done, I'm sure
right.
goes a long way.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that machine. And it's light enough that it's easy to carry.
Yeah, no,
And I
definitely.
will
And
say, well, if I may say too, that the guys at the store, including yourself, on the day retreat, the ladies were just absolutely thrilled and amazed and thankful that they hauled their machines in, the heavier ones, for them, which was
yeah,
great.
yeah, and that's something we always do at Ryan's. We always tell our customers we would rather we go out and bring it in for you than you have to struggle, right? Because we're not fortunate enough to have the automatic opening doors, but you got to manually open them. So, having
Right.
somebody there to help carry that in can definitely help. And not only is it safer for the customer, but it's safer for the machines too, right?
Yeah.
And as we know, if you're trying to open that door, if somebody drops it, we're going to be the ones fixing it. So it's better if
There
we
you
help
go.
bring it in. And we don't mind, it gives us something to do, keeps us busy. And we love, getting that chance to talk to the customer. That's always when you have the best conversations, when you walk out to their car, get their machine and bring it in, right? It's always so much fun.
Right.
All right.
Yes.
So, the biggest reason why we brought you on here is obviously we want to learn about you, but we also want to get some advice. Like you said, you've been doing this since in your 20s and even before that when you very first started with your mom. So, the very first set of questions I have is going to be based on quilting. And then the second set of questions will be based towards more quilting retreats. So, my
Okay.
very first question is going to be what inspired you to start quilting and how long have you been doing it? Which you already answered, so we'll skip that one.
Right.
So, my very first question is going to be can you describe your favorite quilt that you've made and why is it so special to you?
You know, that's a difficult question. I think when I first started, I liked log cabin the best, and I still
Mm.
love log cabin. It's very traditional. Every time I see a new one, I think, oh, this is it. This is my favorite. But, as the years go by, your taste changes. It's not to say there are some I do like better than others. It's just hard to say. There are some that I say, I am never going to let go of this quilt. It's going to stay for here forever. And then after I enjoy it for a while, I can let it go.
Mm. Yeah, no, I completely understand that. I know as the ladies bring different quilts into the shop, there's one that they had made that which was called the Ridges, and the color scheme that they did made it look like the Sandia Mountains, and that's been my personal favorite one so far, just because I'm so New Mexico true, right? I love Albuquerque, I love New Mexico, but I can see what you're saying about the different quilts. We have one gal. Who made the Balloon Fiesta quilt for this next year, and we actually had it displayed in our shop for a little bit. And I love that one too, especially because she incorporated embroidery and applique and all that good stuff. So I completely understand where you come from for that. But at the moment, if you had to decide one, what's your number one at this very moment?
Oh, golly. I probably my husband really likes his flag quilt that I made him, and it's still hanging in his office. So I would have to say that one.
Well, very cool. And if you wouldn't mind sending us a picture of that so we can upload it to this video series so everyone can take a look at it. I know I'm
All
sure
right.
hearing about that, especially 4th of July weekend,
Oh,
I'm sure
there we
people are
go.
going to want to see it. So,
Sure.
alrighty. So my next question is going to be, what are your go-to tools and materials for quilting?
Well, obviously a good machine that is in good working order. I would say good rulers, which I have learned to love, Quilter Select rulers.
Mm,
Um, they don't slip and slide. They're very accurate. A good cutting mat, a sharp rotary cutter blade. And again, I have to say, I've gone to Quilter Select rotary cutter. I seldom use scissors. I use snips
mm.
when necessary, but I would say those are probably the three best things.
Well, very good. Yeah. No, I mean, every quilter I know has those in some form or fashion, depending on the brand, right? But those are just things you
Right,
have to have while you're quilting. It makes the job so much easier. And like you said, at the end of the day, it all begins with a good machine, right?
right.
Good machine for piecing and then also a good machine for quilting. But like you said, you do offer quilting services. So maybe somebody doesn't have the room to be able to fit a long arm machine.
Mhm.
They can come to you for those services, correct?
Correct. And I do, it's called Cedar Grove Quilting. Cedar Grove is where I live.
Very cool. Awesome. Okay. So my next question is going to be, how do you come up with your designs for your quilts?
The actual quilt or the actual quilting design on the quilt?
Well, let's turn that into a two-part question and talk about both.
Okay. I go with what I like. If I see something that just kind of strikes my fancy, I think, oh, I think I want to make that. And then when I look at a quilting design on a quilt, whether it be my own or a customer quilt, I discuss with the customer what they have in mind. If they want something linear or they want something modern, we kind of decide together on the quilt. And if I'm given free reign, I look at the quilt and I kind of think, this design is going to, I think, really enhance this quilt.
Yeah. And have you created your own quilt patterns as well?
I have not.
You have
I,
not. Is that something you
no,
could?
there's so many out there, so many out there that are great that I really don't need to.
Yeah.
And back to on the quilting as well, the thing that's kind of neat that's coming out more and more is using your embroidery machine to do your quilts. So
Yeah.
I'm just starting to learn how to do some of that. And I think that's a great idea for people that don't have room for a long arm. And because you can pretty much quilt a whole quilt on your
Yeah.
domestic machine.
Yeah. It might be a little bit harder and definitely a lot of hooping, especially if you're doing a big size, maybe a king size quilt. But that in
Correct.
the hoop quilting that, has become very popular is definitely not only saving customers money, but also saving them space, right?
Right.
And then it
Yeah,
it comes out perfect, right? Because it's kind of like having the maybe an Innova or another long arm with robotics, right? Where those big long
right.
arms are nowadays turning into basically a big embroidery machine.
Yes. Though it's doable. I will tell you, probably 20 some years ago, I made a king size quilt for our bed, which is on there today. And I quilted that quilt as 124 by 124. I
Wow.
did it on an old 1230 Bernina.
Oh, wow. Very
I
cool.
thought I was going to die, but I did it.
That is awesome. No, and we definitely love our Berninas here as well. Um,
Yes.
so I guess the last question, and this is a very important question, especially for people watching this video, because we're gonna have all ranges. We're gonna have people that are big time quilters, embroiderers, and then we're also gonna have the beginners as well. So,
Mhm.
being given all of your success in this industry, and your expertise, do you have any tips for beginners who are interested in getting started with quilting?
I would say number one, have a good machine. Number two, start with something very small. Don't bite the elephant off all in one piece. Take a class from someone who is reputable, that knows what they're doing. YouTube is worth it. It's got a lot of good information, but there's a lot of bad information as well. So talk to people who do quilt and take advice from them. But again, I would say take a class from someone who really knows what they're doing. Um, I think it's all in the cutting and in the piecing and in the seam allowance.
Mm.
There's just a lot to it, and you really need to pay attention to those little details.
Yeah, no, very cool. And I think that's a perfect response to anybody interested in getting started with quilting. So next up, we'll just kind of jump straight into quilting retreats, because even though you have a very successful business in it, you are kind of transitioning to a new phase of it, right? So
Correct.
what are the key benefits of attending a quilting retreat?
Well, first of all, I would say it's a lot of fun. You meet a lot of new people. I can't begin to tell you how many hundreds and hundreds of people I have met through our business. And even before we started our business, when I would attend a quilt retreat, I still have friendships from way back then. There's just good advice from people. You get great ideas. You find out new things. You find out what products work best for you. You share it. It's just the fellowship of people. It's just a lot of fun. If you go to an overnight retreat, I will tell you it's like attending a slumber party when you were a kid. And we do have we did have men retreaters come.
Very cool. Yeah. I mean, I that was definitely one thing. You do kind of have the perception of this might be a more female dominated industry, but there are a lot of guys involved in this. And we have a lot of
Oh,
male
yes.
quilters that come into the store, that do the class. What people don't realize is every bed has a quilt on it, right? Whether they call it a
Yes,
blanket or a quilt, and whether it's made by someone you love or the big box store, right? It's
that's
one of
right.
the biggest industries in the world that people just really don't realize or forget about, and not just that,
Mhm.
sewing, embroidery in general. You can walk into any business and they're going to have an embroidered logo on their shirt or an embroidered logo on their hat, or all the clothes you wear are going to have sewing in it, even the seats on the cars you sit in, right? So I mean,
Right.
one of the biggest industries in the world. It's absolutely everywhere you look, you will see something touched by a sewing, quilting, embroidery machine, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So the next question is going to be, can you share a memorable experience or highlight from a quilting retreat either you hosted or attended?
I was discussing this with my husband yesterday. I have two, and one actually, they both took place up in Glorietta where we hosted retreats. One was we were getting ready to leave. I tripped over just the tiniest crack in the sidewalk, and I did an absolute face and head plant right into a stucco wall.
Oh my
And
goodness.
and actually Debbie Thornton came to my aid because I said, "Do I need stitches?" She said, yeah.
Oh no.
Well, and I had driven my truck up there, and my husband had to come get me. Somebody had to drive my truck home while I went to emergency. So there was that one. And then I would say my last retreat in Glorietta this last fall, finally, I got to go on their zip line. They have been working on the zip line. It's like a 3-hour zip line.
Oh
And
wow.
I've been wanting to do it. And with COVID and all of this stuff and all the requirements, they finally opened it. And we were kind of the first group that got to go.
Oh, that's
And
awesome.
it was wonderful. I thought I'm going to be too old to do this before they ever get it open. So it was great. So I would say those are my memorable ones.
Well,
Yeah.
very good. Well, I'm glad that that fall didn't do more damage and it was just a
Yeah.
couple stitches because that is definitely very scary.
Yeah.
So
Well,
hopefully you didn't have a machine in your hands.
no, I did not. We were actually getting ready to go home. And oh, phooey.
Well, that's good. All righty. So, what types of workshops or classes are typically offered at quilting retreats?
Well, we never have. So the reason we didn't was because our mission statement when we started the business was to keep it affordable for people. And had we brought in a teacher, we had a lot of people wanting to come and teach. We would have had to raise the rates. And
Yeah,
I think it would have been too much for many of the people. So yeah, people just they bring their own thing and do their own thing. And we have people
yeah,
that bring an embroidery machine too.
right. And there's definitely quilt retreats where you can go out there and there are classes and instructors and
Correct.
workshops. But like you said, what you guys wanted to focus on was that sense of community, especially because New Mexico never had anything, right? Like those retreats, like you were talking about. So,
Right.
bringing that in and just giving people a community, a safe place to come in, connect, work on their own project. And really, I mean, a lot of these gals have been doing it for such a long time. So, I mean, they're kind of their own instructors, giving each other tips and tricks, right? And I know I saw
Right.
you walking around talking to some of the gals, giving them advice. So, even though you don't have those workshops or classes, right? It's really more of like a big open, so kind of like a family retreat, right? Everybody gets to come in
It
and just have a
is.
great time.
Yes, it is.
Mm.
And again, I'd like to say I look forward to doing more at Ryan's.
Mm-hmm.
This year again, we talked about doing one later in the fall because you guys are going to be busy.
Yes,
And
we will.
even in 2025, let's do some more. And
Mm-hmm.
hopefully we can host a lot more people too.
Yeah, no, I think, based on our discussions, I believe this is something that we'd want to do minimum 2 times a year, right? For now, maybe more
Yes.
depending on how things go. I mean, it went wonderful and we just really got started with it, right? So we're just
Right.
gonna start focusing more on promoting this, getting more people, and really just like you said, building that community.
Correct. Good.
Alrighty. So one last question, and this is a big one, especially as we do talk about people coming to Ryan Soen back to, um, you know, and Beth Glass Quilt Retreat, right? We'll come up with a pretty cool name for it or something. We'll work together as a team on that. Because truly, we're going to do it as a partnership. We're going to be a team on this. So
Great.
what should attendees bring with them to a quilt retreat to make the most of their experience?
Well, again, I will say again, bring a machine that is in good working order. That's number
Mhm.
one. And don't forget your cords, by the way. Some
Yeah.
people do forget their cord or their foot pedal. But one of the things I learned way, way back at my first retreat was don't bring a project to cut. It's
Mhm.
better really, I mean, there's space to do it, but if there are other people waiting, it's going to take up your time. So come with your project ready to sit and sew. I
And come
don't go to a
prepared.
quote. Yeah, I just don't go to a quote retreat to cut.
Yeah.
I can do that at home. And to me, that's just a waste of my time. That is probably the important thing. Another thing would be is if you're sewing in the evening or at night, a good light to sew
Mm.
by. That's probably pretty important. It'll save your eyes, that's for sure. Most of the new machines, though, have great lighting, which is really helpful. But
Yeah.
I,
No,
I
they
would say,
really do.
yeah, don't forget just your basic notions and thread. Um, but again, we can get that at Ryan's.
You can get that at Ryan's, right?
There you go.
And we're there to help. We always, like I said, we give that discount to help everybody out. So if they do
Right.
forget something, like you said, hopefully they come prepared. And like you said, you want to do most of the sewing, the piecing, all that good stuff there. Maybe even the free motion quilting on your machine there if you feel comfortable with that. But come prepared because then you'll get the most out of it. We only
Absolutely.
have a couple cutting tables, so you could have one person cutting for half the retreat, right?
Right.
And we don't
That's
want that. We want everybody
absolutely
to sit
right.
down and have a good time. So no, you have done an absolutely wonderful job. I really appreciate you jumping on this episode of So Talk. When I was trying to come up with who to pick for the next guest, a lot of my customers said Beth Glass, right? They love you. You're a big part of this community. And we're super excited that even though your quilt retreat business is coming to an end, we're going to keep it going, right? In that
Yes.
partnership. So I really appreciate you jumping on this episode of So Talk. And I'm really excited to, really get things rolling for that second quilt retreat sometime in September, October.
Okay. I appreciate it.
All right, my friend, we will see you next time. Okay. Thank you again.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.